Story 1. I was not fully aware and kept telling a girl, whose family relied on food assistance, that I was wealthier than she was. I felt terrible and remembered none of it. That was the most regrettable action of my life. Additionally, I forgot to mention that I ended up unconscious on the couch with my trousers partially down. Story 2. I mainly just said embarrassing things to a guy I thought was cute, and who had no interest in me. I still think about it. Sometimes, I will be trying to get to bed and that will pop into my head. It has been like 15 years. Story 3. I was at a party at my friend's house, and everyone got hammered. We were outside by the pool and hot tub, and I kept getting bitten by mosquitoes. So my friend and I went into the house to find bug spray. We couldn't find it, so instead we sprayed each other down with Pam cooking oil. Our friends won't let us forget this. Story 4. I went to a friend's gathering where everyone got pretty drunk. In the middle of the night, still feeling the effects, I woke up needing to use the bathroom urgently. The bathroom was connected to the room I was in, but in my disoriented state, I somehow ended up in the closet instead. Confused and unable to find my way out, I had an unfortunate accident. Eventually, I made it to the bathroom, cleaned up, and went back to bed. The next morning, I completely forgot what had happened until my friend sent out a group text asking if someone had gotten sick or something in the closet because there was literal feces in there. I never confessed. To this day, they blame it on another friend who was in a worse state than I was. Story 5. I lost consciousness while urinating next to an apartment building near the campus. I faintly recall regaining consciousness with my hand in an inappropriate position as a few people stood around me, taking photographs. Story 6. One night when I was 19, my friends and I were drinking at a local bar, which is allowed in Canada as the drinking age there permits it. It was minus 15 degrees Celsius outside, and having no money left for a cab, we decided to walk back to one of their houses drunk at 2 a.m. At one point, we started wrestling for whatever reason, and I wound up falling into a snowbank. Not sure if it was the shock from the cold or what, but I urinated in my pants in front of everyone. Story 7. I got alcohol poisoning when I was 13, to the point where I almost died and was hospitalized for 3 days. But when I was drunk, I was incapable of even moving or standing. I guess I mumbled that I needed to pee and needed my friends to help me. They stood me up to pee, and then I fell directly into a bush of stinging nettles and spiders. There was also a video of me on the ground, mumbling for help because I was pretty much dying, and that circulated around my friend group. I never stopped hearing about it for years. Story 8. Years ago, I woke up on a plane approaching Minneapolis-St. Paul from Albuquerque. My friend said I called for a ride to the airport in Albuquerque, and they said I seemed fine. I don't remember going to the airport. I came to as the captain was announcing our approach to Minneapolis-St. Paul. I had no reason to go to Minnesota. I had to borrow money from friends to afford a return trip. I got to sleep in Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, Terminal 2, with no money, jacket, plan, or toothbrush. Story 9. Had intimate relations in the middle of a party. Not in the sense that, halfway through the event, I excused myself and my companion to a secluded room. I mean engaging in intimate activities on the living room floor of a very crowded gathering. Thanks to Bacardi. Story 10. I woke up with solid feces in my pants, no urine. Over the years, I have come to only 2 conclusions. Either I was so intoxicated that I defecated on myself while urinating in a urinal at the bar and walked around all night, or once I got back, I was gravely ill, and my body was deciding which functions to allocate my energy to. Fortunately, my body chose breathing over retaining my feces. Story 11. Put the major lesbian moves on Donna Douglas, who played Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. She spoke at a conference I attended and shared her story as a born-again Christian. Story 12. A few years back, I was walking home completely wasted at 4 a.m., thinking I was lost. I called all my housemates, waking them all up and asking for them to find me. I lived with 9 other people at the time. Turns out I was just 5 minutes down the road, crying. My friends still laugh at me to this day. Story 13. Woke up one morning with the key in my front door, hand on the knob, as my dad was leaving for work. while a 15-passenger van full of his coworkers watched and laughed. Story 14. I took up a dare to eat a booger someone picked from their nose for $100. In my defense, as well as being very drunk, I was 20. When you're that age, $100 is like $1 million. Edit. I'm told that when I tell this story online, it's important I add that I'm a woman because apparently, that makes it even worse. Story 15. I was at a friend's house after a night out at about 1:30 a.m., decided it was a good time to play football in the back garden, and inevitably kicked it over several fences. I proceeded to climb over said fences through multiple gardens, trying to find the ball until I came to one garden where the house lights were on and there appeared to be people awake in the house. So, I decided I didn't want to look weird and went and knocked on the back door since I was already in their back garden, to ask for permission to search the garden for the football at 1:30 a.m. A police officer answered the door, much to my surprise, and after a second of standing there dumbfounded, I explained my presence in as sober a manner as I could muster and sheepishly asked if I could search for the ball. To his credit, the police officer allowed this, and when I, very quickly, established the ball wasn't there, decided that this was the signal to call it quits. So, I said a jolly goodbye and headed back out to the road to head back to my mate's house as quickly as possible. The police officer followed me to see where I was going, and at this point, the combination of booze and terror had me panicking somewhat, to the extent that I didn't know which house was my mate's. So, I proceeded to try all the doors in the street whilst being observed by this police officer until the door opened. Thankfully, it was my mate's place. My friend, having been partaking in a large spliff at the time, was understandably very distressed to hear the story about the police officer following me back to his house, but incredibly no knock on the door materialized. Story 16. I was staying at the Fremont Bay Area Marriott for work. I was in my underwear only, without a shirt, and very drunk. I went to put the room service tray out in the hallway, and the door closed behind me. This is a full-size Marriott with a restaurant and bar in the lobby, and it is a very busy hotel with quite a lot of people in the lobby. I had to go to the front desk in my boxer briefs. Luckily, my room was on the first floor, and ask for a key. Luckily, I was pretty wasted, so I didn't really have to feel the embarrassment at the time. Story 17. Not me, but a friend of mine. We were walking home from this party in an old construction trailer where we used to get drunk. One of our friends was so drunk that he could barely walk straight, so we decided to take him home, in the opposite direction from where we live. On the way back, my buddy says that he has to use the bathroom urgently and doesn't know if he'll make it home. Suddenly he tells me, "Stop here, I can't go on." And I see him staggering behind some rundown house. This was the not-so-nice part of town. Some time passes, and some residents have noticed me and look at me skeptically or roll up the shutters. It was deep in the night, and I'm standing in the middle of the street. My friend comes back, grabs me by the arm and says, "We have to go," with an urgency I can't explain. I just run after him until we stop a few minutes later, gasping for breath, and he tells me what happened. The guy dropped his pants in some pitch-black backyard and let his diarrhea run free, until suddenly a light goes on, and he realizes that he has defecated in a barbecue bowl. Story 18. Got drunk, then went to a high school band performance that I was supposed to play in. Don't remember much after this, but one of my friends knew I was drunk, sat me down behind the stage, and the band performed without me. After the concert, I apparently tried to sell my phone for a waffle to my band director. After that, I got dropped off at home. The next day at school, the band director asked why I was drunk and why one of my friends was high. All I said was, "You must be mistaken." To this day, I don't know how I wasn't suspended. Story 19. I regret an incident in which I urinated on my teacher's head. We were both extremely intoxicated and beginning to lose consciousness. My friends recorded this, and it has been 12 years. They still use that clip to jokingly blackmail me. Story 20. I think it's hilarious, because it wasn't me, of course. When in college, my friend had way too much to drink, and she asked me for a ride home. Sure. Halfway there, she said she was going to be sick, and I pulled over. On the ground, it all went. But I had no paper towels, and all I had was a fresh newspaper, and she wiped her face with that. Laughing my ass off. The ink got all over her face. She asked if there was any vomit on her face because her mom might not like that she was drunk. I replied, "Absolutely no vomit on your face." The next time I saw her, she said, "Very funny." Story 21. In college, I spent a lot of money on tickets and Jack Daniels for a nationally televised basketball game, with both teams ranked in the top 5 in the country. I invited a cute girl to go to the game and hang out afterward, and she accepted. It was a great game, we won, but she disappeared promptly right after the game during the celebration. Thoroughly drunk and getting drunker, I later saw her draped over some guys at the popular bar. I approached and made a scene, got into a fight, ran outside, got into my '77 four-cylinder Mustang, hit a Trans Am while it was backing out, and led them and the police on a chase through the town in the snow and ice, back to my dorm with the cops hot on my trail, only to be nabbed and thrown in jail. I came to in jail with someone telling me I would never get out. I lost big bucks and the girl had a damaged car, lost my license, and had to pay fines, among other things. Sigh, freshman life. Story 22. Last night, I saw one of my favorite bands. I bought a hoodie after the show, and while I was drunkenly shoving my arm through a sleeve to put it on, I accidentally punched someone walking by. I turned around to apologize, and it was the lead singer of the band. Story 23. Evidently, I woke up in the middle of the night at someone else's house, took off my clothes in their kitchen, realized it was not the bathroom, peed in the bathroom, and then went back to sleep on their couch. Woke up naked and confused. That has been a few years ago. Grown-up me just posts a lot of music on YouTube, goes feck in the morning, and archives it. Story 24. I went with my estranged dad to my great-grandparents' 40th wedding anniversary, and we found out there was a free bar. I wanted to make a good impression on my dad, as I've only just managed to get back in touch with him since I was young. And I was so proud of my nan and granddad. Being 17, I didn't know my limit. I learned after 3 Drambuis, 2 whiskey slams, and about 5 Stellas in the space of 1 hour. The last thing I remember, I woke up the next morning in the town we live in. Keep this in mind, we got the train there. I have only the smallest recollection of going outside for a smoke. The fresh air hit me like a ton of bricks. I dropped like a sack in the sun. Apparently, my dad dragged me 150 feet, then gave up. My mate carried me 1 mile to the train station and took me to his house. And I woke up with a broken cheekbone and panda eyes. I have recently moved back to this town, and every day, I know that I have a lot of family here who was there that night. Unfortunately, I was too wrecked to make a mental note of them. Lesson learned. Stick to course for me. Story 25. I woke up spooning a traffic cone outside my old apartment, which was about a 5-mile walk from where the party was and an 8-mile walk from my current apartment. I must have walked because I left my phone and wallet at the party. Story 26. I made my fiancé and his best friend take me to a strip club with them, where I, for some reason, proceeded to try and emancipate the strippers and get them to vote. I tried to give one gas money so she could go vote and ended up with a lap dance I barely remember. Story 27. We had guests over, a family with kids. We were all watching the first Inside Out. I was pretty drunk, and when Bing Bong died, I bawled my eyes out, just wandering over, weeping, saying, "Bing Bong, Bing Bong." I had to be consoled. Everyone had a good laugh at my expense. I can laugh it off now, but I was very embarrassed the following day. Story 28. I was about 17 and had passed out in bed with my girlfriend at the time. I was on my back in the nude. I woke up to her screaming at me because I had started peeing, and it was going straight up into the air and landing on her. Story 29. On our second date with my current significant other, I threw up all over his shoes after drinking a few too many Ommegang 3 philosophers. Then, I sat there in my car while we were making sure that I was done vomiting and he could get me home, and told him that he should just give up on me. You can't recover from shoe puke. Thankfully, you can, and we've been dating for almost 2 years now. Story 30. I defecated in a bathtub. My friend went to have a shower the next morning and found it. There was a Facebook page and everything. I still have no recollection of it, but it had to be me. Took another 15 years, but I eventually got sober. Story 31. So, My husband and I were drinking, and I fell onto the carpeted floor somehow. Instead of it hurting, I simply laughed at it and said the first thing on my mind, which was, "Look, I'm a sea turtle." And I started to drag myself across the floor like a turtle. My husband, equally drunk, laughed with me and said, "Babe, you're too drunk." To which I replied, "When too drunk, sea turtle." We both laughed and repeated the phrase to each other over and over again. We still laugh about it even now. Not my proudest moment, but it was still funny regardless. Story 32. Threw up on a stripper I'd spent $4,000 on over a few weeks. Passed out outside the bar, woke up in the hospital, ripped the IVs out and left. Passed out outside another bar and woke up on my crush's couch with her explaining how that killed the feelings she had for me. She ended up marrying the guy she was with that night. Broke my nose falling face first because I forgot how to stand. Twice. There's more, those just stand out.